Hello, everybody. Today, with our Interviews with Experts series, we have Jordan Mendoza, who is a sales and leadership trainer, a public speaker, personal branding strategist, coach, consultant, and content creator, as well as a podcast host himself, based in Atlanta, Georgia. If you know of Jordan's content on LinkedIn, I'm sure you'll agree he posts some amazing content that just inspires people and is also very thought-provoking. So Jordan, I'd like to welcome you to the interview today. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Derek, and so happy to be here and have this conversation.
Fantastic. Now, Jordan, let me start off by asking you, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences with LinkedIn, and particularly how long ago did you get started and what was it like for you to actually get started on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Well, I think like most people, I got started on LinkedIn what I feel like is forever ago, probably over a decade ago. But when I got started with it, it was just all about like, let me go see somebody's job update. Let me go update my profile in case I'm looking for some other work, right? Or maybe I just got a certification. Let me go back and add this to my online profile, which was essentially back then, it was just like, a digital resume, if you will, right? So now, when did I get active? I would actually say that I was kind of in hibernation for a long time. And then last April of 2019, I logged on to LinkedIn for the first time in a while. And what I saw was video, right? I saw a lot of like people's faces as I was scrolling through, and I very quickly realized that LinkedIn was not just a place to go and, you know, update your profile anymore, right? LinkedIn had changed. They had now given people the ability to actually start creating contextual content around subjects that they want to talk about. And it wasn't just a place where you had to be super professional and talk business. Now there were different conversations happening.
Interesting. Okay, fantastic. And so when you started actually posting some of your content, how did that work for you, or how did that work out for you?
Yeah, so actually I started first posting content is I was on LinkedIn one day and I had saw something to come across my feed. It was a video and it was a guy by the name of Brian Schulman, which we both know.
Yep.
And has this initiative on Wednesdays called What's Good Wednesday. And I looked at that initiative and I, saw the video and, in this video, he is super encouraging and he's trying to encourage people to post their first LinkedIn video. And I remember watching it and I remember just how passionate this guy was, how happy he was, how positive he was, and how engaged he was with his audience. And I said, this is somebody I want to start following. So I followed him. Saturday came around, right? And he does something called Shout Out Saturday. And again, it was just this burst of energy and positivity. And it was something that I felt like I needed that, right? Not only did I need that, but I looked at that and I said, he's right. Like I can also post a first video. But me, just like a lot of people that are out there, before you post your first video, you have that thought, right? Who's going to watch this? Like, why would anyone really care about anything that I have to say? I'm just this regular human, right? And so you kind of get that, like, shoot the video, you go to start typing, and then you like delete the video. I went through all those same emotions that I think a lot of us go through when there's that fear of rejection or failure or something like that. So it actually took me a little bit, but not shortly after seeing those initiatives, I got the courage to create that first video. And the first video I created, it's very interesting. It actually was, I posed a question, and the question was, does anyone know anyone that can help with social media marketing, right? So, very ironic, right? This was the question that I asked, and I remember posting it and then like checking every 2 seconds to see if anyone watched it yet.
Yeah.
I kept checking. It was like 1 view, 2 views. Okay, that's probably just me. But and then I remember just kind of telling myself, listen, it doesn't matter who watches this. Like just keep creating, just keep talking about things you're passionate about. And things that are important to me are certain topics, right? I enjoy topics. I enjoy talking about sales and marketing because I've been doing those things for 25 years. I enjoy emotional intelligence because I teach that as part of a leadership program. So I started just focusing on what I wanted to actually talk about. And when I started doing that, that's when the engagement started happening. And we can get into that here in a second.
So would you describe that as your biggest breakthrough on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think like, like creating the first piece of content,
Mm-hmm.
that started it all, right? I mean, that set the foundation of like pushing that fear aside and saying that, you know what, even if just one person listens, then I feel like the message is important enough for that person to hear.
Yep.
Right. Now, did I think back then? Because I think I was sitting on probably close to 7,000 connections or followers, or however you want to look at that number then. And if you would have told me that by December, of 2019, that I'd have passed 20,000, I would have told you there's no possible way,
Yep.
but it just all happened very organically, right?
Okay. And so when you're working out your content, do you try to apply a particular strategy towards figuring out what kind of content you would like to post? Is there a strategy behind all of this?
So I think initially there absolutely wasn't, right? It was like I just feel like talking. I did it very instinctively
Mm-hmm.
and just using kind of intuition. Like if I had a thought that popped in my head, I would type it in my notes and I would say, "Yeah, let me go post this."
Yep.
And so it happened. It happened as I was experiencing thinking about it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And so it. But I've always enjoyed writing. I've enjoyed copy, that process of having to think about what the words would actually do to the reader, right? So that's something I've always been aware that I had the ability to do. So from that point, it's like it's actually how I actually think. So when the words come out, it is supposed to be thought provoking, right?
Yep.
Because it's how I've interpreted it in my own head, if that makes sense.
So you mentioned when you get an idea for a post, you actually write that down in your notes. So
Yep.
when ideas do pop into your head, regardless of what time of the day that might be, you actually keep a record of those ideas, which helps give you more and more inspiration for different posts and different types of content to put up. Is that right?
That's it. Yeah. And sometimes I'll actually forget that I put it in my notes, right? Because, sometimes I just have these thoughts and it's like, and the thought is really a quote,
Mm-hmm.
like I'll just be sitting around my house. And I remember one day I was in, like, went into my bathroom and I had typed something into my notes in my phone. And what I typed, it said, the struggle might be real, but the good news is that every struggle has a free gift called a lesson.
Yep.
And I put quotation marks at the front and the back of it, and I showed it to my wife and I said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And she said, that so sounds like you. And I was like, that's because it was me. But so I doing things like that, I think it's important because you know how we are. We have a lot going on. It's very easy to forget things.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
I use this device that's more powerful than a lot of different things, right? So you got to take advantage of the tools that you have
Yep.
if you want to remember certain things. And so that's one of the things that I started doing. And I would write out, like, when I started working on, I've only written one article on LinkedIn, and
Yep.
I'm in the process of thinking, like, what do I want to write the next one on? So that's why I haven't written one. But it was one of those things that people told me not to write it. And
Mm-hmm.
again, you get feedback from certain people, and certain people will say, yeah, it's great to have at least one article,
Yep.
and that was kind of the general consensus. But there were a few people that were like, don't waste your time. Articles they don't make an impact and things like that. And I was like, okay, well, I like that challenge. So let me write an article, let me write an article. And so I only wrote one, and in my eyes, because I look at everything based on engagement. I'm not concerned about the vanity. I don't, views are great, the likes are great, but what I really enjoy about my content is the contextual conversation that's happening
Yeah.
within the posts,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where I can see that, someone has either thought differently or they have a different opinion than me. And sometimes it's like, wow, like what a brilliant perspective. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
Right. So I actually enjoy that because I'm learning and I'm growing as I'm reading. And it also gives me a sense of like the people that are in your community, right? That are in your network. So that's what I really enjoy about creating content.
Yep, absolutely. And I agree with you 1,000%. The notes section on your mobile or your cell phone, as you call them over there, or even I actually use a notebook, and I actually jot down different ideas that I have for content. And it's funny because those ideas can come to you at 2 a.m. in the morning when you're fast asleep.
Sure.
I've actually trained myself to wake up and write it down, because I know when I go back to sleep and then wake up in the morning, I would have forgotten it. So yeah, just keeping a record of your ideas for different posts is certainly great advice, and I thoroughly recommend that. So Jordan, let me ask you, what do you think are the best things about LinkedIn for you?
So the best thing really for me is the people, right? Being able to meet people of all walks of life, all different industries, all different countries, right? I mean, LinkedIn has truly made the planet like closer, right? I am now at 8:30 p.m. on a Sunday evening talking to you in Australia, in Melbourne,
Yeah,
at 12:30 in the afternoon tomorrow.
yeah.
So, I'm talking to someone in the future. I mean, if that doesn't excite you about LinkedIn, right? You can talk to people, you can literally talk to people in the future. I don't know what does, right? But I mean, like we've known each other for what, maybe 6 months we've been connected, or a little longer, and you really can get the sense of who people are, right? You can get, that's why I love video, is because you can actually express your emotions,
Hmm.
and people get to see a different side of you. So I think what I like about it is it's being able to generate relationships in a digital space and actually taking them offline into
Yeah,
an environment like this, or even like in person, meeting face to face. And just the ability to be able to establish those relationships at scale is what it's all about.
absolutely. I completely agree. I think it's a remarkable platform for, as I call it, establishing, building, and nurturing those relationships, but also for meeting people within your target audience, your target market, either inside that or outside that, just meeting an amazing community of people who are very professional, very good at what they do, who, whilst we all might be in business, one of the things that's interesting about LinkedIn is selling on LinkedIn is in many ways actually frowned upon. And so there's this belief, this principle, this mindset of basically helping people out. And I've made some extraordinary connections. I've met some truly wonderful, some amazing people. And the things that we've talked about, the things that we've discussed, both on conversations, calls like this, but also as part of our content as well, is quite extraordinary. And it's quite different when you turn that content around a little bit from people's initial interest, which is to try and promote their businesses. And then you turn that around and you think, okay, how can I add value? And once that button goes off in your mind and you start thinking to yourselves, okay, this add value thing, oh, that's all about relationship marketing. That's all about attraction marketing. And it's not so much a science, but it's a proven effective business strategy. It works extremely well. And there doesn't have to be any selling involved. What you literally do is you build relationships by adding value. And that's the content that does extremely well, especially if you're asking questions of your audience. Is that what you found as well?
Absolutely. That's exactly what I do. I mean, that's exactly the type of content that I create, because, me having information does me zero good if I don't share that information. And that's
Yeah.
that's the way that I look at it. But I also look at it from the standpoint of, if I actually can help somebody, that's
Yep.
on their journey, right? Because everybody's on a journey, whether you're a W-2 employee or you're an entrepreneur, everybody's on a journey, and everybody wants the ability to be able to learn and grow. And when you can be selfless, with
Hmm.
the information that you have,
Yeah.
uh, I believe in reciprocity, and good things actually start to happen, right?
Absolutely.
Like good things
Absolutely.
happen and people start to recognize that, because this is the one thing that I've noticed is like you have zero idea who's out there and who's seeing your content. Because
Yep.
I've gotten some messages from people who have never liked, never thumbed up, never put a heart, right? Never put a light bulb, right, on anything, but they've messaged me and we've had conversations that have turned into a fruitful relationship in
Yeah.
business, right? And so you literally never know. So I want to create content that's going to educate people about topics that I'm passionate about and that I may have experience in.
Hmm.
I don't look at myself as an expert really in anything. I think that we all have areas and room to grow.
Hmm.
But if I have information about something and I'm confident about it, then I'm going to talk about it, right? And listen, I get people that they may actually say, "Well, I have this opinion," and that's fantastic. Let's open up the conversation, right? That's what it's all
Absolutely.
about, is creating those conversations. And because someone may say something that makes me look at something a little different, and I hopefully can do the same for them. So,
Absolutely. I completely agree. So let me ask you, what would you suggest to people do to actually enhance or build or grow their experience with LinkedIn?
one of the things that I highly suggest, because this is what I did before I even ever did my first post, is I wanted to consume people's content, right? Just so I can get to know them a little bit, right? You start watching consistently, or maybe you're going through written word and maybe some video, and start to get a sense of somebody's character, right? You start to learn a little bit more about them. So once you've done that thoughtfully, then go and actually engage. Like that's kind of step two. Step one is consume, right? Learn a little bit about them, and then go and engage, meaning add your 2 cents to the conversation, right?
Yep.
If you have an insight or you got a thought or an opinion. Now, one of the things that was helpful is be respectful, right? Use the golden rule, treat people the way that you want to be treated. And, I'm one of those people that I have a lot of optimism and positivity. And so that's the way that I treat people, right? Everybody has their own different style, but, join those conversations, and then don't just do that for the one person, but be consistent. And I even tell people, listen, budget like maybe engage in 50 conversations in a day,
Yep.
right? Because what starts to happen is then people start to say, who's Derek Mildred? Like I keep seeing Derek Mildred's awesome headshot popping up on my feed. Like, who is this guy, right? And so now what happens naturally?
Yeah.
Law of attraction, like you said earlier, people
Exactly.
get curious, and so now they're going to see what you're all about, right? And so that, I think, is the foundation: is consume the content, start to engage, right? And then people are going to start to do what? Naturally, check out your profile, right?
Hmm.
They might engage with your content, you might get a request, right? But that's, I think, those are like one of the things I heard at a retirement party earlier this year, and I'm sure this has been around forever, but it was the first time I had actually heard it. We had the VP of IT retiring, and he said the one thing that was foundational in the IT department when he first started in the 90s was he instituted something called crawl, walk, run, right? Like first you crawl, then you then you walk, and then you run. Like
Yeah.
no one is born and then you just start running, right? Like that just doesn't happen. So that's something that he's instituted, and I think a lot of business run on that foundation of the crawling part is the consumption. You're
Hmm.
just getting the hang of the information, right? The walking part is you start to engage, right? And the run is now you're seeing how everything has been working. You know what content looks like. Now it's taking the action, and that's when you start to run. You start to do that first static text post, or you start to do that first video, right? And then you just, it's almost like these endorphins are released when
Yes.
you start to get people actually engaging with your content, and you
Hmm.
start to have those contextual conversations. So that's kind of my advice. Institute that strategy, and um, you know be patient. This is a game of chess and not checkers, right? It's a long-term thing because you're actually building a brand,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that takes brand is synonymous with reputation.
Yes.
And as we know, it takes time. It's not going to be one of those like you wake up and all of a sudden people are, the cameras are at your door. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen that quick. So
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really experienced that. I really appreciate that, I should say. Um, and yes, I too have experienced a lot of those points that you bring up. So let me ask you just finally, what would be the key takeaways that you would actually suggest to the listeners or the viewers of this interview? What would be the key takeaways that you can recommend?
yeah, I would say that, when you're on LinkedIn, whether you're on it because your company told you to get on there, right? Maybe they've heard that like, hey, there's a lot of people here and our message might be able to reach a lot of people, whether it's that situation, whether you're an entrepreneur and you want to start building that brand that you have, or maybe you're just an employee and you just like to share your thoughts and information with people. Whatever your purpose is, just remember to be yourself, right? That's what it's all about. It's to be your authentic self, whether it's yourself in the words that you write or it's
Hmm.
yourself in the video. Just be you, because there's only one you, and you can't be anyone else, even if you wanted to, right? But when you do that, people actually get to see the type of human that you are.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
as we know, people do business with other people that they like, know, and trust.
Yeah.
And so if you can just focus on talking about things that you're passionate about, right? Building contextual relationships, being thoughtful, engaging in conversation, then over time, you're going to look back and say, wow, all I've really done is just was really myself on a digital space. And the goal was to help others, build relationships, maybe it's earn business, whatever that goal is. If you're doing it from the right place, I think that anybody can be successful on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. I think one point that I would like to add is when it comes to posting your content on LinkedIn, there are three different types of posts. There's text only post, there is text and an image, and then there's video posts. Videos are by far the best for letting people to actually get to know you, get some insights into who you are, what you're about, etc. But the best advice I can give is to basically mix it up a little bit, to occasionally post a text post, occasionally post text and image, and then occasionally post a video post. So mix up that your posting strategy a little bit. The algorithm also prefers that. And yeah, basically just give it a shot, just give it a go and get started, and you'll be amazed at what starts to happen. And it becomes quite exciting when you actually do see some of your posts actually take off, and you have a look, or you log back into LinkedIn, you think, wow, look at the responses I've got, look at the likes I've got, or the comments that I've got. And importantly, reply to that interaction, reply to people's comments on your posts.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one last thing, just remember that you got to test, right? You
Yeah.
don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work until you actually make the attempt, so just make sure that you're testing. It's okay. Nothing crazy is going to happen by testing something out. And what you'll get to see is the results, and you'll get to see the improvement over time.
Yeah.
And that's where the magic happens, right? Is that growth that you experience. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jordan. It's been a pleasure talking to you today, and really appreciate you sharing those invaluable insights with us all. And I'm sure there's some amazing information, some good tips, some good advice that people can get out of watching this interview. So thank you very much for joining us. It's been great to have you.
Hey, it was my pleasure, and I thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jordan. Bye for now.